Friday, October 31st. I'm Adam Walsh, and this is The Signal. Food Banks Canada's annual hunger count report is out and says food bank use has doubled nationally since 2019. Today, we start with the national look and zoom in to check on food banks in this province. By the way, 1/3 of the people getting food from food banks, kids, children. So I said Food Banks Canada CEO Kirsten Beardsley is on the line. Thank you for making time for this call.
Thanks for having me.
So I just gave a bit of an intro there, but can you give me some of the other highlights from the hunger count report from earlier this week?
Of course, what we're seeing is that food bank use has grown. We are at the highest level in Canadian history, and that looks like nearly 2.2 million visits to food banks every month in Canada.
How long have you been in this job for?
I've been the CEO of Food Banks Canada for just over 3 years. I've been at Food Banks Canada for 11.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've asked you this before, but being at Food Banks Canada and now being CEO and just seeing this march since 2019 up and up and up and up and getting to the point of the report this week, what is it like to be in your position and see that happening across the country?
I mean, it's hard. I'll be honest. We never wanted to break this record, and then we keep breaking it year over year. What I get to witness, though, is the food bankers themselves and the folks who care about food insecurity right across the country and who are advocating and rolling up their sleeves and lending their voice to this cause. So I have a lot of reason to hope. It's just hard when it doesn't feel like the urgency with which we're speaking is being met by a lot of action in other sectors of the society.
So with the usage, what's some of the breakdown around what we know of who is using food banks and who some of these increasing numbers?
Yeah, so what we're seeing is, and one of the trends we're really following is the increased number of people with jobs who are using food banks. So that's at its highest level, and that's growing. So unfortunately, a job used to mean you were sort of secure from not having to use the food bank. Now, a lot of folks are stopping at the food bank on the way home from work. We're also seeing, as you said, 1/3 of the people who use food banks are children. That's a stubborn proportion, even as the numbers rise. It speaks to how challenging it is for families with kids. We're seeing a growth in the number of two-parent households that rely on food banks. We're also seeing that the majority of folks who use food banks pay market rents, and so very vulnerable to increases in housing costs. And the increase in seniors is also something that we're following. So still underrepresented, but it used to be that we had a strong social safety net for seniors, and so it's very concerning to see the growth in the number of seniors who have to turn to food banks.
You talked about action from other places, right? Because I've got 4 people in front of me working with food banks and who will talk about the amazing, important work that gets done in the community. And we're talking to other people on the phone later in this hour across Newfoundland and Labrador. People who care, people who are trying to help their communities, people who will talk about numbers and people and families impacted. So there's lots of action out there. But then there's this other action that you mentioned is not happening. What else do you, in order to have things reverse and go the other way in a positive way, what has to happen?
Yeah, so as we said, and I'm glad you're showcasing the important work that's happening at the community level. It's so critical. But in order to reverse this tide, in order to bring the number of people who need food banks down, we need policy action. Really, this is an income support issue. And so we are calling in the hunger count every year. We provide recommendations to the federal government in order to support those who need food banks out of poverty or those who are at risk of needing food banks. And one of the big things we're calling on this year is a reform to the EI system. So as unemployment starts to tick up across the country, we know that the EI program in Canada doesn't respond to the majority of the needs of folks who are working today. It was designed in the 90s. The words gig economy didn't exist in the 90s. It's not responsive to today's workplace. So we need urgently EI reform, as well as immediate supports for people who are low income, groceries and essentials benefits, so people can afford to go to grocery stores and buy their own food. We're also calling on the government to look north. Food insecurity is a crisis across the country, but it is significantly worse in the north, and so we need targeted programs and policies for those communities.
How are you feeling about the what you're hearing ahead of the federal budget?
I mean, I think we're all sort of anticipating a budget that is a little bit tough to swallow. We've heard the word austerity. That sets a lot of us in the community sector a little bit concerned. But what the message we're trying to share is, as we talk about building a strong country, looking to the future and the challenges we face, and making sure Canada is ready to meet those challenges. We can't do that as a country when a quarter of the population is experiencing food insecurity. We can't be a strong country when you've got this many children who are going to school with empty stomachs. They're not in a position to thrive, right? They're not learning what they need to learn. We're not setting ourselves up as a country to be strong. And so if we are committed to this strength of our country, if we're committed to the future, if we're committed to meeting the challenges, we need to make sure people have food. It's such a fundamental need of all of us. And so that's the argument we're making to the federal government, is that you talk about strong Canada, you talk about building strength. We need to make sure people have food in order to achieve that vision.
Yeah, especially to your point, there will be record spending in this budget, but then there's also going to be cuts in some parts, and then there'll be spending on defense and other things, and with the tariff bit with the state. So there's spending being out there, but the question is, does it go to what you're talking about or not? And I guess we'll have to wait until next Tuesday to see what happens.
Yeah, and what we're trying to frame is that this is part of that spending to build the strong country. So, we can't only think of it in terms of dollars going out, but this is an investment in our future. We can't thrive as a country. We can't be great as a country if we don't have folks with their basic needs met. And that's unfortunately the situation that we're in right now. People often ask me the thing that keeps me up at night, and there's a lot of stress at the food bank level. A quarter of food banks in Canada ran out of food before they met their community's needs. That definitely keeps me up at night. But I think the thing that's troubling me the most is the worry that we start to see this as normal. It is not normal for 2.2 million visits to food banks a month in Canada, and we can't start thinking that this is just every day. We have to start really questioning how we came to this point in Canadian history where we're okay with neighbors going to food banks at this rate.
Kirsten Beardsley, CEO of Food Banks Canada. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, I'll go to the folks here in the studio. We'll do a little whip around of introductions. And I guess if we want to start with just how things are going with your food banks, with the food assistance you're providing. Daniel Seward is back, Executive Director of the Single Parent Association of Newfoundland and Labrador. Thanks for coming back in.
Thanks for having me.
What from this, what you just heard to your reality, talk to us about it.
So the children piece really sticks out for us because we serve specifically single-parent families. Every hamper that our food bank distributes goes to a child or children. And we are at a point where it's I hate to say normal, to have a wait list every week of families that just can't get in. School snacks high on the list all the time. So as you go into times when there's a PD day or when there's Christmas break coming up, parents are used to being able to utilize programs like Kids Eat Smart Breakfast or school lunch. Now all of a sudden they have that added pressure of providing extra meals and snacks during the day to kids that otherwise would have been in school. So we are seeing the crunch right now more than ever.
Okay. More on that. Leslie Burgess is back, Executive Director, Bridges to Hope. Thanks for coming back in. Same questions to you.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, Adam. So I think that last fall when I was here, I said that every month was busier than the last. And throughout the entire year last year, that's exactly what we saw. This year, what we're seeing is demand is still extremely elevated, but it seems to have leveled out a little bit. So right now we're seeing about 1,500 visits every month. And while the number of first-time visitors is still continuing to increase, it's not increasing as dramatically each month as it used to. That's not necessarily a good thing, because what it tells us is that the people who are accessing the food bank are returning more often. And that is a very clear sign that the measures in place by various levels of government are not enough to keep people out of poverty or to lift anyone out of poverty.
So then when you keep doing your job, like having that in your mind, how do you process that with the help you're trying to give?
It's difficult to think that the demand that we're seeing could continue at the current level. And so this year we've really been putting in efforts to look at the service that we're actually providing and to see where we can work with people to make sure that the help we're offering is actually still helpful to them. That has meant a number of things for us. We've been looking at the type of food that is offered and making sure that we can kind of expand nutritious and fresh food options. It has also meant that we are providing people more choice over the types of food that they receive. And most of all, we've been looking at ways that we can make sure that our services are flexible and easier to access.
Before I move over to Rudy, who's back here again as well, one other question for you, and we'll get to a bit on Christmas, but what's the difference between if someone gives now as opposed to giving every month for a food bank?
Monthly giving is so important to food banks, and I think that everyone around this table can agree with that. We see the majority of donations that we receive in a year arrive in the 6 weeks leading up to Christmas. And that means that we are spending the rest of the year really hoping that we're going to have an excellent fundraising season so that we can maintain service, from January to November, basically. So if you think about it, giving $120 at the end of the year is amazing, but spreading that out and giving $10 a month really gives us more predictability and helps us to plan ahead and plan longer term.
And if you want to give $120 and then $10 a month, that's
even better.
Okay. And just to let people know, for this conversation today, I said the Single Parents Association, Bridges to Hope. We'll be speaking with Tina Bishop shortly with the Community Food Sharing Association. Now we have Rudy Singleton here with the chairperson for Amos House. All these places are just to put names in your heads, folks, for the conversation, and you can do with it what you will. Rudy, welcome back to the show. Whenever I see you, I think of driving, but now I'm also thinking about this. Tell us about Amos House and being chairperson.
Adam, thank you very much for the invitation. And as people have speaking here, the situation seems to be consistent. Our visits have increased by about 40 per month at Emmaus House.
Emmaus House, sorry, yeah.
And we have we're funded primarily by 3 churches. We get our food from, some food is purchased. We get food from community food sharing. And what we're finding, Adam, it's not just the numbers that are increasing, but it's the complexities of the presentations.
Yeah.
We're getting people, for example, with 3 generations in a family. And we just wonder, as Leslie mentioned, how far is it going to go? It's not getting any better. And the factors that are pushing this are so vague and changing that we really don't see the picture improving very much in the near future.
So what do you do with that picture you're painting? what do you do? Like, how do you? What's your response to it? How do you do anything about it?
Well, we try, or we try our darndest to make sure that we increase the amount of food we have on hand, that we let people know that the needs are increasing, and as a result, we get some nice donations. But Adam, it's a perplexing issue, and becoming more and more complex as time goes on.
Tina Bishop is here again, General Manager for the Community Food Sharing Association. Thank you for coming back in.
Thank you for inviting me, Adam.
What's tell us? All right, Community Food Sharing Association. What's the look from your end of things?
Well, as the distribution center for food banks throughout Newfoundland and Labrador, we have 60 food banks that depend on us for food each month. We're seeing and we're hearing from the food banks that their numbers are increasing still, with over 15,400 visits a month. That's a significant increase, 8.3% over last year, 44.1% since 2019. So these are staggering numbers that we're seeing every month in the food banks. In fact, we've had 52% of our food banks are reporting increases over last year.
Right.
So it is a significant, increase in numbers. So at the Community Food Sharing Association, we're out there. We're trying to get the donations, food donations, financial donations, to help supplement the food that we receive. We purchase a lot of food, and then that's distributed to the food banks throughout Newfoundland and Labrador. So we're really dependent on the donations. Like Leslie said, the biggest time for donations is coming up to the Christmas season, the 6 weeks leading up to Christmas, and we depend on that then to help us get through the rest of the year.
We got a note from David Moores, longtime show listener. Says, another argument for a basic annual income for all instead of a hodgepodge of resource-draining programs for those in need. David, thank you for the note. Everyone else listening, if you have thoughts similar or different to David's or about anything else we're talking about, the text line is open, 709-327-8206. You can email us, the signal at cbc.ca. Whenever, like every year, like in this lead up, but other times during the year, whenever I think about food banks, something often comes up of, well, they're created in the 80s, meant to be this emergency response, not meant to be part of this system. And you can kind of understand a system where you're like, oh, something really bad happens to a family unit, and it's like we have to go get a hamper or an individual. I get that. What you're all talking about, and each year when we do this, or each time you're on, and we keep talking about these increases, this is sounding awfully different from the 1980s, because it is. What are your thoughts on just like what's the function of food banks for Newfoundland and Labrador and Canada compared to what they are designed for, and your thoughts on, the right or wrong, or however you want to phrase around it, Rudy?
Well, food banks initially were founded to provide a bridge between when the financial resources may have run a little thin, and in waiting for the next income.
Yeah.
But now it seems to be consistent. The same people are showing up all the time, and it's reflective of the increased prices. I mean, our people who do the purchasing are just saying that what the value of the dollar is just diminishing every week.
Yeah.
And the food banks of the 80s were emergency agencies. Right now, they're becoming essential agencies.
Yeah, like a solid part of what we talk about a social safety net in Canada and in Newfoundland and Labrador. So, and there's a lot of thoughts around what that can be and what that is. But for these conversations, how is this not a solid part of the safety net? If you get these regular people showing up weekly, monthly, whatever it is, because they can't afford to eat. Anyone else?
I'll just add in, I guess. It's not just the fact that it's consistently growing, but I think the demographics are changing so quickly. Yeah. So I know Kirsten referenced about the individual, the folks that come in that are employed. That's a huge trend that we've seen a change with at the Single Parents Association, especially in the last, I would say, 2 years. Previously, you might have had a stereotypical view of who is visiting a food bank, and they could be on social assistance or whatnot. The majority of our clients right now are working people. Some of them have multiple jobs and they still cannot make ends meet between rent, utilities, every other bill that they have on their plate. And there's just not enough left for food, or affordable food, I should say, because that seems a little bit more unattainable right now.
So what are your conversations like with people when, they're coming in? Like, what do you talk about?
They're incredibly difficult to have, and they do change. We've got single moms, single dads of up to families of 7.
Yeah.
So, you put yourself in that situation, 6 kids on your own, and you're trying to feed everyone. In most of these cases, mom or dad, whichever parent is coming in, they're doing without their food to make sure that the kids are having something to eat.
Yeah, because and for folks, when we talk about food insecurity, and I say this a fair bit when we do these types of shows, it's not that there's not enough food in Newfoundland and Labrador or Canada to feed people. The grocery stores are full. It's a food affordability issue. And typically from reporting I have done before, that CBC Newfoundland and Labrador has done before, when you look at like food insecurity, you start by worrying about food, right? Where am I going to get, can we afford groceries? And then what happens is the parents go, well, I'm going to do without to give the kids. And then it goes on from there into once you get into an extreme level. So these are, and that's the range for food. When we say food insecurity for Newfoundland and Labrador and Canada, this is what we're talking about, right? So this is what you're saying.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that strikes me more than anything, and I've been working in the food bank directly this week, we actually rescue a lot of the meals from Newfoundland and Labrador Health Services. So in the hospitals, once the day is done and they have excess meals, we rescue that and we will give it to our clients. So they're ready to eat. They're full of nutrition. More cases than not, this week especially, I've seen parents open those plates and eat the meals cold in the car because they say they haven't even eaten yet today. And there's no denying that. When you see someone actually just opening up a cold meal and eating it with their hands in the car because they're hungry, that tells me everything.
And what does that say about what we've created for where we're living?
It's almost like a perfect storm, It's just quite simply impossible for a lot of people to get ahead. And, there's a lot of social programs available, and they're all great. We were a part of the Poverty Reduction Plan announcements. Those things are great, but they miss the working class. And that's where we see the really big gap with our clientele. It's individuals that are doing everything they can to get ahead, working 1 or 2, sometimes 3 jobs. But a lot of these supports aren't available to them. So they end up being the ones that are struggling sometimes the most.
We just came through a provincial election campaign. I'm just, from what you're saying to me and what everyone else here has been talking about, was that flavor? Was that... Did you feel any of that coming through the campaigns? And I know that there was some talk of cost of living, right? Sure. But for what you are all experiencing at food banks, are you seeing understanding from politicians and policymakers, whether it's municipal level, provincial level, or federal level of any party?
I would say that... as Rudy also said, it's been 4 decades of this supposedly temporary system of food banks. Yeah. Food banks were never designed to be the backbone of the social safety net. And what we are seeing is that every time a government program, whether provincial or federal, falls short, the food banks are the first to respond. And what we are finding is that the food banks don't always necessarily get a voice in that conversation. And so, while we're on the very front lines of this poverty crisis, we are talking with people who are experiencing food insecurity every day. We're seeing the complexities that they're having to deal with. And we often are seeing trends on the ground long before the data catches up. Yeah. So I will say that I'm cautiously optimistic to see a minister of poverty reduction named in this new cabinet. Yeah. I hope that means this government sees the urgency in this issue and will take action on it. I also think that it's a really good opportunity for the food banks to start having a concerted voice on this issue, because we can't do this alone anymore.
And and people got lots of thoughts. I know, about like the government of Daniel Williams for many things, as with any government. But during that time in this province, with that poverty reduction strategy and with social assistance pegged to inflation, we were leading the country, and we're and as you can from reporting and talking to food insecurity experts, like with the University of Toronto, Valerie Tarasuk, to quote her on it, we were the envy of the country, and that reporting has been done. So we'll see what happens now once we get a budget and we have a sitting of the legislature and we start hearing more from the current government, and also how the opposition keeps them to task, and everything else. Tina.
Yeah. I just wanted to add there that, we are seeing a little bit of hope there. Yeah. In fact, 60% of all households helped through the food banks are on income support. That's down from 75% in 2019. So we are seeing that these poverty reduction programs that the government are coming out with, they are working. They are working, but we need more.
Yeah,
we need more. So, with the new government in place now, it gives us a renewed hope that the government will take time to, really give this thought on how we can help people out of poverty in this province.
And that speaks to some of the, like you said, on the lower end, right, for income support and some of the things there. But then we still have the gaps on the working end of it that Danielle was just talking about there. So I really like the picture. I find it's a fulsome picture of the reality that's being painted by everyone here so far.
Absolutely. So, again, and I keep saying this, that this new government is given a renewed hope. So let's sit to the table. Let's have these discussions. See, what policies are working, how well they're working, and what more can be done to help lift people out of poverty in Newfoundland and Labrador.
Really quickly before we go to the phones,
Yes, Adam, one thing that when I first went to the food bank to volunteer, I couldn't believe the need that was being presented. And I feel that is symptomatic or emblematic, or shall we say, of the population. The general population doesn't know the level of need that exists.
Yeah.
And as Leslie said, if all the food banks get together, get a collective voice, and speak to government, I'm sure they'll respond positively.
We'll go to the. I mentioned we're going to phone folks in other parts of the province. We have Marjorie Flowers on the line, the Onion Cook for Hopedale. Onion Cook Flowers, thank you for coming back on the show.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Tell us about the food bank in Hopedale and how things are going.
Well, our food bank operates totally on donations, and this year I've noticed. Last year, I think we had probably over 1,000 visits to the food bank from our community members. This year, we've gone up to 1,254 to date. So there's a huge increase, and people are really hurting because of the inflation.
Yeah, and we started the show today with the CEO of Food Banks Canada on, and she made specific reference to food insecurity, cost of living, the cost of food in the north, inflation really impacting communities. There's a federal budget coming. Is there? Whether it's the provincial government or the federal government, is there anything you want to see for food in the north from folks?
I'd like to see more. A little higher salaries, I think, and a little bit more help for the food banks itself. I mean, it's very difficult for us here to operate and to sometimes have to turn people away from our food bank because we don't have the funds to buy any more food, and that's really difficult for us to do.
What are the challenges? I can picture the challenges, but what are the challenges to getting food into Hopedale?
Well, for one thing, it's very expensive to ship food here, and food is quite expensive in the stores. Although I must say, we only have 2 grocery stores here, and the same owner. However, she does try her best to keep a minimum to the costs of the food. So we're really grateful for that. But food has gone up everywhere, the cost, and especially here in the north.
What's an example? Like what's a 2 liter of milk, or another example for the cost in Hopedale?
For a 2 liter of milk, I think it's over $6 for 2 liters.
Yeah.
The highest cost is more the meats.
Okay. What are some of the meat costs?
Well, you can buy a turkey for anywhere from a small turkey for $45 to up to $75.
Yeah, I mean $75. Then you get the extra from if it's the extra money for milk, and then all of a sudden everything starts adding up, and plus then the difficulty of getting food in and some of the scarcity of it too, right?
Yes, and the produce is quite expensive, given on, I guess, the availability of it from the suppliers. So everything makes a difference. And I've heard people say sometimes they have to choose between buying fuel or buying groceries or paying their hydro bill. And it's only getting worse. And I've noticed that the people using the food bank are not just people on low income. A medium income are also coming and seeing if they can get some food from the food bank as well.
What's the population of Hopedale? About 600?
Yes.
Okay, just curious. So then, what's the outlook now as as winter sets in? As you're looking ahead, and any other thoughts for yourself as Anyukuk of Hopedale and your community?
Well, we try our best to look around and get extra funds so that we can stock our freezers and buy supplies. The one good thing for us is that we get a lot of help from Nunavut government.
Yeah.
So we have meats like elk and bison in our freezers, and later on this fall we'll also be getting in some moose, which is a huge help for people. And sometimes that's all that they have to eat.
Right. Thank you, as always, for coming on the program on Anyukuk Flowers, and I hope the sea ice sets in on time this year compared to other years.
Yes, always a pleasure. And just to say, last year we saw the last freight boat leave here, I think, on the 24th of December. So climate change has also had a huge impact on whether we can get out hunting or the sea ice is dangerous to go on. Sometimes it don't freeze up so early anymore. So there's many challenges here.
Yeah. Front lines of climate change, also high levels of food insecurity, food security issues. I thank you so much, as always, for painting the picture for us and talking to us about your community.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Marjorie Flowers there, Hopedale, Anyukuk. Before I go back to the folks in the studio, this is you're listening to The Signal. I'm Adam Walsh. Cross-province discussion today about food banks, food bank check-ins. This comes on the heels of Food Bank Canada's annual hunger count report, saying food bank use has doubled nationally since 2019. One other quick call before we go back to the folks in studio. Glenn Royal is on the line. Hello, sir.
Good afternoon to you, Adam.
So your thoughts on the show or the report, poverty reduction, cost of living, go for it.
Yes, Adam. Speaking on behalf as President and Chair of the Board of Canada Poverty, it's a very troubling report. I commend all the great work the food banks that are doing across the province and across the country at all, but I think it's time now that government really needs to figure out a plan to make sure people aren't income secure, because this all comes down to an income issue, as well as I think, I know the federal government has had a number of consultations with the major grocers in parliamentary hearings. And as we all know, as we go grocery shopping, every week to week you see cost and increases at all. I think in France and some other part of some of the European countries, they've actually put a restriction on, I think it's the top 150 or 200 essential items. And maybe a similar sort of initiative needs to take effect in this country at all, because if people aren't getting the proper nutrition and the calorie count that they need to maintain healthy lifestyles, I mean, it's going to affect their physical and mental health, but it's going to come out in cost to healthcare 10, 15, 20 years from now at all. So, it's a short-term pain for long-term gain at all. And again, food is a basic human right. And we really have to make sure that nobody, regardless of, what your income threshold is, that people have enough to maintain good quality of life.
Any other thoughts before I let you go, Glenn? That was obviously really well said, as always.
My thoughts is hopefully with the federal government throwing their budget down on Tuesday, Prime Minister Carney and Minister Champlain and the CEO of Food Banks Canada say that there's going to be an investment in this as much as going to be an austerity budget. And for Premier Wakeham, as well as Minister Carty, Minister Evans and Minister Wall, I think three key ministers now in the Wakeham government, hopefully there'll be a priority in the spring budget at all, and hopefully the consultations will resonate, because at the state of there's so much issues, and it goes back to the social determinants of health. It's also the housing issue, the utility issue, transportation, so on and so forth. Hopefully we'll have better life ahead in 2026 than we've had in the last number of years.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you calling the show as always.
Thank you very much. All the best to you and your guest.
All right, Glenn Royal there, folks. So back in studio, from Marjorie Flowers, talking about the situation in the north. To Glenn Royal, right, hearing some on social determinants of health there. Also look to the spring for a budget. We've got a federal budget coming. Anything stick out to you?
I would say that one thing that sticks out to me, and we see this all the time in our conversations with folks coming to the food bank, is that they are continuously having to make very difficult decisions, and it's exhausting, having to sacrifice your nutrition and by extension your health, as Glenn said, to make sure that you can continue to pay your rent is a decision that nobody should ever have to make.
Yeah, and when we talk about wanting to have the thriving, healthy communities, and in Newfoundland and Labrador, there's a whole lot of pride, which is amazing in this province, right? There's a lot of pride in our culture, our history, and who we are and what we are. But then when we have these discussions. What's the impact to our communities when we have folks who are doing what showing up, eating food in a car because they've skipped meals cold just to kind of get through, and because you need to eat. But then the mental health impacts of that, the stress of that. What are the impacts to our communities?
I think it's the domino effect. Studies have shown, for example, in education, children who go to school hungry, their behaviour becomes a little bit erratic and unacceptable, and then that leads to another societal issue. It leads to stress on the parents. It leads to stress on the schools, and then it just keeps rolling and rolling. To come out of the Basilica area, that's where we operate, and to see the number of homeless people. So the food shortage is one thing, but there's a whole social divide, or a whole social void, I should say, where people's needs and with food being the most basic, and then as we get down to more of the more basics, a lot of them are not being met.
When you first volunteered at Emmaus House, what brought you in?
Well, they looked for volunteers at the at the church, and I went in there, and the rest is history, so to speak. And I've been every day, and I mean, when we're in around Mondays, we're constantly in touch with community food sharing, and every day the situations that are presenting themselves, and we operate at Emmaus House on a principle of dignity. Because we know that no matter what the situation is that prompted the person to come to our door, they'd rather not have to do it.
Yeah.
So no matter if they've been to another place 2 or 3 days before, we still give them enough for supper, so to speak, and then we adhere to the principle of distribution as set down by community food sharing and other agencies. But it's really humbling to see how sincerity of these people and the hurt. It's
So I think you just answered it, but coming in to volunteer is one thing. You're the chair now. You're doing radio. This is not your first time doing it. What pulled you in further for this? What was it? Was it everything you just described, or can you give me a little bit more on it?
Yes, I became more and more involved because I saw that there was a need, Adam, and I saw also I was really encouraged by the level of commitment by all of the volunteers. People who come there every day of the week and set out the food and distribute the food, get it when it comes in from the grocery stores, putting it on the shelves. So I was just humbled by the commitment of so many of our people. I'd never risk naming people, but it's humbling. So I just wanted to try to emulate their exemplary behaviour.
It's quite the thing to see folks where, like the system that we have for the communities we've set up is failing some people, a lot in growing numbers. But at the same time, you can sit and be elevated to take so much from people and to be humbled, and then also inspired by the work of others. Like there's a lot that comes out of this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and that's just parallels some of the negative consequences of people who go without basic needs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their pride is assaulted, and that has all kinds of negative connotations.
What's a day like, Leslie, at Bridges? Like, run me through a day for folks.
Every day is different.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why, so many of us have such energy for this work, because yes, you see the really difficult parts of it, and you see people in impossible situations, but you also see that food banks mobilize community. Yeah. And that for me is so important. Like, our work would not be possible if it weren't for everyday people who decide to share what they have. Yeah. So whether that's, funds or food or time, it's like it takes true community action to make this possible. And so every day, we have anywhere between 50 to 80 people coming through the door for food assistance, but we also have a solid, amazing team of volunteers and donors who support that work and who really assume the best in people and want to bring about positive change in their community.
Go back to the phones. We've got Pastor Gerard Noble on the line from Stephenville. Pastor Noble, thank you for coming on the program. You're the chair of the Stephenville Emergency Food Services. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, good. So tell us, what are you seeing? We started the show talking about the Food Banks Canada report, the hunger report on food bank usage doubling since 2019 across the country. What's the reality in Stephenville through your lens, sir?
Well, the first thing I want to do is to throw my hat off to the lady who spoke just before me. I think it's amazing that the first thing she mentioned in my hearing was that the strength in our food bank is in its volunteers and the community that wants to go behind it. That's 100% certain. As much as our food bank use has astronomically outgrown what we were prepared for, so have the people who have backed us up in it. I'll give you this much that I hope is still tasteful. We had over 600 patrons to our food bank over the course of December in 2024. We had 740 of them in August of this year. It is no longer a seasonal issue. It is not, the fact that the utility bill is so bad or transit is limited with snow or Christmas season happens to be more expensive. Like, it is no longer circumstantial to a season. It is indicative of the state of affairs. And I agree, the food bank usage and need is growing.
So the state of affairs you're describing, when you look down the road, like what, and we've talked about, we have a new minister. They're looking at with a poverty portfolio. Questions around, waiting to see a new poverty reduction plan and what comes out from the new government. The outgoing government was doing had their own poverty reductions initiatives as well. And then you get the third party talking about it, right, with the NDP. And then federally, we've got a budget next week with the federal government. The look ahead, where are you with thinking of what may happen on the road ahead, and whether, I don't know if it's optimism, pessimism, or somewhere in between?
Well, I have some optimism, but it's not immediately related to, I'll say, fiscal decisions. I think that there has to also be some changes. The economy will also change based on how you deal with people and their struggles upstream. I don't want the very last thing that I deal with is the hunger that they come to the door with. The goal of our food bank is supposed to be an emergency service that gets you through the next business day, connected with a community support that will get you from rock bottom to start climbing.
Nice.
I don't want anyone to think that a food bank is supposed to operate as a pantry that's available at any given window of weeks. More so that we are there at the bottom to make sure you have everything you need to get you to the next support and on your leg to full recovery. I know that returning numbers are something that we end up evaluating. People who are coming back and are not changing in their system or their circumstances haven't changed. And there are forms of we'd like to make appeal to the government on their disability or on addictions and recovery. They're doing great work on that coming up. I do have a lot of optimism for it. As much as I appreciate the idea of poverty reduction or money being given into the food banks, we have to look at the problem upstream as well.
What are some other changes you'd like to see then upstream?
I'm thinking it would be astronomically different if we made sure that mental health services were as easily acceptable as other forms of emergency first responders. I think that having someone in a 12-step program is a great start, but I think that like there was a program when I was a teenager called Sedler that you could partner off with someone in employment and give them a leg up on their worst day. And I feel like if we could get them reintegrated into something meaningful, purposeful, and impactful that they can make a difference and a paycheck of their own, that would come above what is on the bottom for any form of Social Security, disability, what have you. I feel like we would do better to take care of each other. And I think that the new chapter in our government should be listening to the voices of the people who are boots on the ground dealing with these issues daily. I think this is a good start. Let's take care of each other. Let's introduce programs that go beyond signing a check to meet your immediate need, when instead let's spread it out with support that will meet all of your needs.
You must be an awfully popular pastor in Stephenville because you're, I could feel the passion, and you're making a lot of sense, sir.
Brother, we do not work for worldly acclaim. I exist for the people who don't know that they yet belong. And if I don't make many promises in ministry. One of them I do make is no one leaves Pastor Jared, they're still hungry.
Thank you so much for coming on the program and talking about everything that's going on in Stephenville and your thoughts, sir.
Thank you for taking the time with us and the other leads and volunteers and food banks. Shout out to all of you who are making your way into the holiday season and breaking your back to make sure that the person next door has enough. I am proud of you. I'm grateful for you, and I cheer you on.
Thank you, sir. Pastor Gerard Noble there from Stephenville. Anyone want to follow the good pastor with someone you're saying? So well said.
Yeah, absolutely, Adam. Pastor Noble is a great inspiration in the Stephenville community and throughout the province. When we look at food banking in Newfoundland and Labrador, it's really the volunteers. It's the volunteers that are out there day after day after day that are, helping those at the ground level. And without the volunteers, the whole system, would crumble. So we are so grateful to have people who are so passionate, and want to be involved in helping those in their communities. A shout out to the volunteers for sure.
Me and you've got more talking to do now once we round the corner to December. You tell us what's coming up again?
On December the 5th is the annual Make the Season Kind campaign, where CBC partners with the Community Food Sharing Association to raise funds to help those in need throughout the province this holiday season. So it's something that we're really looking forward to again this year. There's lots of exciting things coming up through that program, and there'll be more in the media, I'm sure, on that in the coming weeks. And, thank you to CBC again this year for making the season kind.
And here on The Signal, we try to have these conversations year-round to do updates with food banks and with talking about poverty reduction, talking about food security, food insecurity, to kind of really illustrate all of the complexities for Newfoundland and Labrador and also across the country. Anyone else on the lead up to the holiday season, what it means for you and the work you're doing and what you're trying to do?
At Emmaus House, in addition to the food, to the regular food distribution, we also have a Christmas hamper program for which people can register between the 17th and the 21st of November. And there is information about that registration in every hamper that's been given out for the past month.
Okay. Danielle, what about yourself?
So we've been in Christmas mode for the last couple
You're
weeks.
like already there?
Yeah. So we have a Christmas magic program with Single Parents Association. We provide magic in the form of gifts and food to single parent families across Newfoundland and Labrador. So it's not specifically just St. John's. We launched registration back on the 15th of October. Right now I have over 1,300 children looking for gifts this year. That's over 800 families.
How do people get in touch with you?
So with that, you can visit our website. It's SPANL, so Single Parent Association Newfoundland Labrador.ca. We are desperately in need for family sponsors this year. No kid should go without a gift from Santa. That's just not right. So we are doing what we can, but that is astronomical demand. So if you are still in need, our registration, we do keep it open. Or if you even have a teddy bear to give, there's nothing that's too little to a family in need. So definitely visit our website or give us a call.
Thank you for that. Leslie Burgess.
Yeah, so this is the time of year when things really start to ramp up. I'm sure Danielle regrets giving me her personal cell phone number because but it's good to be able to to lean on each other for support when needed. Bridges is also offering its annual holiday assistance program. We offer grocery gift cards to individuals and families experiencing food insecurity. So the applications are opening in a couple of weeks on November 17th, and they're going to stay open until the 21st. If folks want to apply, they can go online to bridgestohope.ca. They can give us a call, or they can drop by that week during food pantry hours, and we'll make sure they get their registration in.
Go ahead.
Adam, I want to, before we end, I want to really thank you and CBC for having these several programs throughout the year to keep emphasis on the fact that there are people out there in dire need. And CBC, through this, is really assisting all of us in attempting to meet that need.
We're all in it together, Go ahead, Tina.
Just on the Christmas season coming up, we're expecting this year to have over 1,000 families, throughout the province. Actually, not 1,000. I'm sorry, 10,000.
10,000.
We're expecting over 10,000 families throughout Newfoundland and Labrador to apply for assistance with Christmas hampers this year. Again, that's we're seeing an increase year over year for the Christmas hamper program, and the Christmas hamper program is in addition to the regular support offered by food banks. So those numbers are significant. So what I ask is that people in your own communities, if you're able to donate at all to your local food banks, then we ask you to do that, because that money or that food is going to stay within your communities for those that need assistance.
Right. All right, we've got less than a minute left. Folks, thanks for coming in for these. I appreciate them. We will keep these conversations going. We will see each other, Tina, in December for Make the Season Kind. I will be back in touch with all of you, and as always, get in touch with me. And for folks, as you're listening, right, for these types of topics, anything else, the signal at cbc.ca. So what's that, Leslie? You're going right back to work, is it?
That's it. Yep.
So what do you do this afternoon?
So this afternoon, our food pantry closes at 1, but then we're going to get to work restocking for the following week, making sure we have all of our vendor orders in, and the work continues.
And Danielle, yourself?
Pretty much the exact same thing.
Keep it going, right?
Yeah. Hunger doesn't take a holiday. It's Halloween, but we still need to do it.
Okay. Thanks, folks. Thank you all for this discussion. That is it for the show today, everyone. Thank you again. Thank you so much for listening. Like I said, the signal at cbc.ca. You can call the signal line and leave a message, 709-576-5260. Coming up on Monday, we are talking social enterprise. You will meet innovators trying to tackle social, environmental, and cultural challenges through their social enterprises. And gosh darn, some of them are really neat. Don't miss the show on Monday. Until then, be safe out there for Halloween, hey? Cheers.